greatest saboteur of your manifestation is not the universe, it's your own ego, desperately trying to control the invisible. There's a moment so subtle that most people miss it, the instant when desire turns into obsession, when flow hardens into effort, when intuition is drowned out by anxiety. And in that hidden moment, everything you long for slips further away, not because it isn't coming, but because you're standing in its way. Think about the gardener who plants a seed and, out of impatience, digs into the soil every single day to check if it's growing. He thinks he's helping, but in truth, he kills the very process he wanted to accelerate. Isn't that what many of us do? We water our dreams with worry and then wonder why nothing blossoms. Could it be that the invisible is not resisting us, but we're the ones resisting it? The ego hates simplicity. It cannot stand the idea that creation could happen without struggle, because without struggle, it feels unimportant. Yet in the quantum field, effort is not the currency. Coherence is. The universe doesn't listen to your hours of overthinking. It listens to the frequency you carry in silence, and here lies the paradox. What you want is not hiding from you. It's already moving toward you, if only you'd stop fighting the current. Like a surfer, you're not meant to dominate the ocean. You're meant to align with the right wave, at the right moment, in the right state of being. That's the language the field understands. But the question that lingers is this: what if everything you've been chasing has been trying to find you, while you've been too busy trying to control it? When the ego takes the driver's seat, the body immediately shifts into survival mode. The nervous system locks itself into fight or flight, as if every possibility were a threat instead of an opportunity. Science backs this up. An overactive prefrontal cortex keeps the mind busy predicting dangers, but never opens the door to creation. Spiritually, traditions across the world echo the same truth. Real life begins only after the symbolic death of the old self. It's not the noise of control that changes reality, but the silent resonance of being. Dr. Joe Dispenza often reminds us that the field doesn't respond to effort, it responds to coherence. Imagine someone affirming, "I'm abundant," while their body is still flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. The words may be repeated, but the vibration is off. It's like trying to play a love song on a guitar that's completely out of tune. No matter how skillful the player, the sound will distort the message. The field isn't tricked by words, it reads frequency. The double-slit experiment is one of the clearest metaphors for this. Scientists saw that particles behaved differently when observed, collapsing into a fixed reality. The implication: observation, not control, shapes outcomes. But here's the catch. When the ego observes, it looks for proof, for confirmation. It peers into the field with suspicion. When the soul observes, it does so with surrender. That's when the collapse aligns with creation, not resistance. Think about prayer in different traditions: Christian surrender, Buddhist detachment, Sufi devotion. The common thread is the death of self-centered will. The ego wants to dictate, to manipulate, to be the sole architect. But every tradition whispers the same paradox. Only when the self steps aside does the divine architect take over. In modern terms, it's like finally getting out of your own way so the field can do its work. The ego wants to be the creator, but the true creator is the field. You may have noticed this in your own life. Perhaps during moments of total exhaustion, when you gave up trying, suddenly things aligned. The job offer came, the relationship healed, the opportunity unfolded. It wasn't in the hours of overthinking, but in the brief seconds of release that magic entered. People call it coincidence, but in reality, it's coherence. The soul vibrated beyond control, and the field answered. Control demands tension, while resonance carries ease. And here lies the bridge to our next challenge. If the ego blocks creation by over-controlling, what about those restless hours at night? That endless loop of how, when, and if. Overthinking might feel like responsibility, but it's often just disguised fear. The mind thinks it's helping, but in truth, it's recycling the same frequency. And recycling energy only recreates the same reality, which leads us straight into the danger of overthinking. Overthinking is like trying to convince the universe of something your energy doesn't actually sustain. On the surface, it feels like responsibility, planning, analyzing, preparing for every possible outcome. But beneath that surface, it's just fear wearing a suit. The ego loves to disguise its insecurity as productivity. It whispers, "If I think enough, I'll be safe." Yet what it really creates is a loop of resistance, a wall that keeps manifestation out. Picture someone lying awake at night, replaying endless what-ifs. What if the deal falls through? What if the partner leaves? What if I fail tomorrow? Each thought feels necessary, almost noble, but in reality, it's like running laps inside a prison cell. Lots of movement, zero progress. Energy spent in that cycle doesn't expand reality. It just reinforces the cage of old patterns. Overthinking keeps you in the same room, staring at the same locked door. Quantum physics offers a perfect analogy. Repeating the same observation collapses the same outcome. It's like the mind becomes a broken projector, replaying the same movie over and over. You can switch the seats, grab popcorn, or even invite new friends, but the film doesn't change. The ego thrives here because the familiar, even if painful, feels safer than the unknown. But manifestation isn't born in certainty. It requires the leap into uncertainty. Consider this. Some of the most transformative moments in history weren't calculated. The Wright brothers didn't have a perfect manual for flying. They had broken wings and endless crashes before liftoff. Steve Jobs didn't overthink every outcome of the first iPhone. He risked being wrong in front of the world. Overthinking would have killed both dreams before they left the ground. Creation always demands space for uncertainty. In personal life, the same principle applies. Think of the time you kept rehearsing a conversation, word by word, only to realize the moment arrived and it went nothing like you imagined. Yet somehow, it still unfolded the way it needed to. The preparation wasn't wasted, but the control was. Overthinking strangles spontaneity, while surrender allows space for alignment. The ego asks for guarantees. The field only answers to trust. And this trust, or lack of it, shows up in very specific ways. Some people repeat affirmations with no emotion. Others demand proof before they let go. Many obsess over the plan, forgetting the purpose. These are not random habits. They are signals of the ego in disguise. And understanding these signals is the next step if we want to break free from the cycle and actually shift into manifestation. The first sign is repeating affirmations without truly feeling them. Words alone are like pressing keys on a piano with no strings attached. There's no sound, no resonance. The ego convinces you that repetition equals progress, but the body doesn't lie. If your chest still tightens with fear, the field receives fear, not abundance. Affirmations aren't magic spells, they're amplifiers of the emotional state you embody. Without feeling, they're just echoes in an empty room. The second sign is demanding proof before surrendering. This is the classic, "I'll believe it when I see it." The ego wants guarantees, a contract with the universe that promises safety. But manifestation flips that equation. You see it only when you first believe it. Think of planting a seed. You don't dig up the soil every morning looking for sprouts. Doing so kills the very growth you expect. Faith is watering without proof, trusting roots you cannot see. The third sign is obsession with the plan, while forgetting the purpose. It's like programming a GPS, but never starting the car, waiting for the map to be perfect. The ego craves control of every turn, every stoplight, every scenario. But the field doesn't operate on step-by-step directions. It flows through resonance with the destination. Purpose is the North Star. Plans are tools, not prisons. When the plan overshadows the purpose, resistance replaces movement. These signs are subtle because they look responsible on the outside. Who would argue with affirmations, wanting evidence, or having a plan? Yet when driven by the ego, these habits drain energy instead of fueling creation. They are safety nets woven out of fear, and fear cannot manifest freedom. The mind insists these are smart choices, but the soul knows better. It knows that trust, surrender, and emotion are the real engines of manifestation. If you've ever felt stuck despite working hard, these signals might be at play. You keep saying the right words, but your body carries doubt. You keep asking for signs, but miss the synchronicities already around you. You plan so much that action never begins. It's a sobering realization, but also a liberating one. Because once you recognize the pattern, you can choose differently. Awareness is the doorway to release, and release is exactly the next step. The ego holds, clings, demands. The field responds when you let go. Surrender isn't weakness. It's the silent ritual of real manifestation, which is why the next practice is so powerful. A simple act of letting go, not in thought, but in action. A moment where control is released and space is created for alignment to enter. Release is not about giving up, it's about giving over. The ego believes control is power, but in the quantum field, power is resonance. Letting go signals trust, and trust shifts frequency faster than 1,000 anxious thoughts. Think of it as unclenching your fists after holding them tight for hours. The relief is immediate, and energy flows again. Manifestation requires that same release. Soltar e ativar. To let go is to activate. One way to embody this is through a simple declaration. Writing or saying, "I release control," is more than words. It's a quantum command. By placing it in the comments or speaking it aloud, you anchor this frequency into action. It's not for the algorithm. It's for your nervous system. Action crystallizes intention. When a whole community joins in, the field amplifies the release collectively, turning surrender into strength. There's also the power of the breath. A slow inhale through the nose, a pause, and a long exhale through the mouth. This signals safety to the nervous system. The body shifts from fight or flight to rest and receive. In that biological coherence, the field can finally mirror what the soul intends. Just 3 cycles of this can be enough to reset. It's simple, accessible, and immediate. The ego complicates, the soul simplifies. Visualization is another doorway. Imagine placing the thing you cling to in your hands, then opening your palms and letting it drift into light. Don't push it away. Release it upward, as if the field is catching it. That picture imprints on the subconscious, reinforcing the act of surrender. It's not about erasing desire, it's about detaching from the need to control the how and when. That's the essence of releasing. Some people fear that letting go means losing, but notice how often in life, the moment you stopped forcing, what you wanted finally arrived. The relationship healed when you stopped begging. The opportunity appeared when you stopped chasing. Release isn't loss, it's alignment. It's trading anxiety for trust, chaos for coherence. And in that shift, the field can finally bring the reality you've been waiting for. And this shift goes beyond just one practice. The real question is, who is manifesting, the ego or the soul? The ego manifests through fear of not having. The soul manifests through the certainty of already being. This next step reveals the contrast clearly, so you can recognize in yourself the difference between control and creation, between a lantern and the sun. When manifestation is ego-driven, it feels like carrying a backpack full of stones. You're pushing, planning, and still sensing resistance at every step. Think about money. The ego says, if I don't control every coin, I'll lose everything. That thought breeds scarcity, no matter how much is in your account. But when the soul leads, financial flow feels lighter. like the promotion that comes unexpectedly, or the client who appears the moment you stop obsessing over finding one. Picture relationships. The ego manifests from fear of being alone, so it clings, demands proof, and tries to script every conversation. This often pushes people further away. On the other hand, when the soul leads, love feels inevitable. You're not begging for attention, you radiate wholeness, and others naturally gravitate toward that energy. It's the difference between chasing affection and embodying it. One feels heavy, the other magnetic. Health is another mirror. The ego obsesses over control, counting every calorie, Googling every symptom, living in constant stress about, what if I get sick? Ironically, that stress weakens the body's natural balance. When the soul leads, health practices flow from trust. You choose foods and routines not from fear, but from care. It's the quiet assurance that your body knows how to heal when supported, not micromanaged. And often vitality follows that shift. The lantern and sun analogy still applies here. The lantern, like ego control over diet, money, or love, provides some light, but leaves you exhausted, constantly refueling. The sun, like soul alignment, floods everything at once, without effort. You may have felt this difference in small ways. The day you stopped stressing about weight and suddenly enjoyed moving your body, or the week you stopped begging for love and suddenly received it freely. These everyday examples show the subtle line between fear and trust. The ego says, if I don't push, nothing happens. Yet look closely. Many of your best breakthroughs probably happened when you were no longer forcing them. The dream job came when you released the desperate search. The healing began when you stopped obsessing. The relationship deepened when you gave it space. Letting go isn't losing, it's making room for life to move. Still, the ego doesn't vanish in one breath. It will test you, whisper doubts, and tempt you to grip the wheel again. The work is learning to notice, that's fear speaking and return to trust. Over time, this dance becomes familiar. One step of control, one step of surrender. Gradually, the soul leads more often, and life begins to feel less like resistance and more like flow. And in that flow, something bigger awakens, preparing you for the next shift. So, here's the truth. Manifestation is not about forcing, convincing, or controlling the invisible. It's about becoming coherent enough that the field can't help but reflect who you already are. But now, the question is yours. Will you keep feeding the same loops of fear, or will you finally release control and let life flow through you? Look back at your own journey. How many times did you repeat the same affirmations, yet feel nothing shift? How often did you demand proof before taking the leap? And how many nights did you lie awake, overthinking the how and when? What if those patterns weren't failures, but signals that it's time to shift from ego to soul? Imagine for a moment what your life could look like if you stopped clinging to control, if you allowed love to arrive without chasing it, if you allowed opportunities to appear without over-planning every detail, if you trusted your body to heal when supported, instead of micromanaging every symptom. What doors would open if you simply stopped digging up the soil? Now I want to hear from you. Which of these ego traps have you noticed most in your own life? Is it the endless repetition, the need for proof, or the obsession with the plan? Share your truth in the comments, not just for you, but for others walking the same path. Your story might be the mirror someone else needs right now, and if you're ready to take this journey deeper, don't just watch and leave. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and stay connected. Each video is another piece of the puzzle, another wave waiting for you to ride. The field doesn't reward hesitation, it rewards alignment. And alignment begins with saying yes to your own growth. So the invitation is here. Step out of the loop of control and into the rhythm of creation. The universe is already listening. But the question is, are you ready to answer?